Imagine Earth from space, a pale blue dot alive with possibility. Floating in the vastness of the cosmos, our planet is a rare oasis, teeming with life and stories. From this distance, borders vanish, and the world seems united, a single, fragile home suspended in darkness. Now, zoom in on a vast patch, Canada, the world's second-largest country, stretching from the Atlantic to the Pacific, and up into the Arctic. Its sheer size is staggering, a landmass so immense it could swallow entire nations within its borders. You might expect a land this size to glow with city lights from coast to coast, a tapestry of human activity shining through the night. But as we focus, the lights cluster tightly along the southern edge, leaving the rest in darkness. The north remains a vast, silent expanse, barely touched by the glow of civilization. Why is this giant nation so empty? What keeps so much of this land wild and uninhabited, even as cities elsewhere grow ever more crowded? We are explorers, builders, settlers, yet most of Canada remains untouched. For centuries, people have ventured into these wilds, drawn by curiosity, hope, and the promise of new beginnings. The answer lies not in human ambition, but in the land itself. Canada's geography is both breathtaking and formidable, a landscape that challenges even the most determined. Nature's forces, ancient glaciers, harsh climates, and rugged terrain, have shaped where people can thrive. Winters here can be long and unforgiving, and the land itself is often rocky, forested, or frozen. Settlement patterns aren't random. They're the result of a long negotiation between human will and physical reality. Communities cluster where the land is gentler, the climate milder, and resources more accessible. Canada's story is one of geography as destiny. The land itself has written the script for where people live, work, and dream. To understand this emptiness, we'll journey through geology, climate, and history. Each layer reveals a new chapter in the story of this vast, mysterious country. We'll see how numbers, rocks, and rivers have shaped a nation. The forces of nature and time have carved out the spaces where people could settle, and where they could not. We'll look back at the first settlements and consider what the future might hold. The story of Canada is still being written, shaped by those who call it home and those who dream of new frontiers. The universe is full of empty spaces, yet emptiness is not absence, it is potential, a canvas for discovery and wonder. Some of the most fascinating are right here on Earth, waiting to be understood. Canada's wilderness is a living laboratory, a place where nature's secrets are still unfolding. Canada's emptiness is a cosmic story, grounded in our own world. Let's begin our exploration. The mystery starts now, as we journey into the heart of the empty land. Canada is a country of staggering scale, stretching across nearly 10 million square kilometers, an area so immense you could fit the entire European Union inside its borders twice, with room to spare. From the Atlantic to the Pacific, and all the way up to the Arctic, its landmass is the second largest in the world, surpassed only by Russia. Yet despite this vastness, Canada's population is just 40 million people, a number that might surprise you, given the country's size. Imagine a land so big but with fewer people than the state of California. That's only about 4 people per square kilometer, one of the lowest population densities on the planet. In many places you could travel for hours without seeing another soul. But even this number doesn't tell the whole story. It's a statistic that hides more than it reveals. Most Canadians are clustered in a narrow strip along the southern edge of the country, right next to the US border, where the climate is milder and cities thrive. In fact, 90% of Canadians live within just 160 kilometers of the United States. The rest of the country, stretching northward for thousands of kilometers, is sparsely populated or completely wild. That means 95% of Canada's land is nearly empty. Untouched forests, endless tundra, and remote mountains dominate the landscape. It's a bit like owning a gigantic mansion but only ever using the front hallway. The rest remains unexplored, echoing with possibility. This isn't just a matter of personal preference or habit, it's the result of powerful natural forces, climate, geography, and history, all shaping where people can actually live. To truly understand why Canadians cluster in the south, we need to look closely at the land itself, and the challenges it presents. The numbers and statistics show us the what, the facts and figures of where people live. But it's the geology and climate that reveal the why. The story of Canada's population is written in its rocks, rivers, and weather. The vastness of Canada is undeniable, but the space where people can comfortably live is surprisingly small, hemmed in by nature's boundaries. Canada's population map is a paradox, an immense land with a tiny human footprint, a country of grand scale but intimate communities. The reasons for this are written in the earth and sky, in the soil beneath our feet and the weather above our heads. So let's dig deeper into what makes most of Canada so hard to call home, and why so much of this country remains a wild frontier. The story of Canada's land and people is just beginning to unfold. In the end, it's the land itself that sets the rules, shaping the lives of those who call this vast expanse home. Climate is the main architect of Canada's emptiness. High latitude means long, cold winters and short, cool summers. In the north, subarctic and Arctic climates dominate, with average temperatures below freezing. Permafrost makes building and farming nearly impossible. Infrastructure must be specially designed just to survive. The cost of living in the far north is enormous. Energy, logistics, and survival all come at a premium. Only Indigenous peoples with deep traditional knowledge have thrived here for millennia. Maps don't show the invisible walls of climate. The emptiness isn't a void, it's a landscape ruled by thermodynamics. The energy needed to sustain large populations here is simply too high. Nature's barriers are real and relentless. The climate decides where people can live. In Canada, winter is always at the door. Beyond climate, geology shapes Canada's population. Much of the country sits atop the Canadian Shield, ancient exposed rock scraped bare by glaciers. The last ice age left behind thin, acidic soils and countless lakes. Farming is nearly impossible on this rocky terrain. The Shield is rich in minerals but poor in arable land. Settlers avoided it, choosing fertile lowlands and river valleys instead. The Shield became a place for mining, not for building communities. This ancient geological barrier still dictates where people live. The land's scars are written in stone. Canada's population map is shaped by rock as much as by climate. The Shield stands as a silent gatekeeper. If climate and geology built the walls, water carved the doorways. Rivers and lakes were the original highways of Canada. The Great Lakes and St. Lawrence River formed the backbone of early settlement. French explorers followed these waterways, founding cities like Quebec and Montreal at strategic points. Canals and lakes connected the interior, fueling trade and growth. Cities like Toronto and Hamilton grew where water made transport easy. Waterways offered power, transportation, and connection to the world. Settlement followed the flow of water, not the open land. The St. Lawrence lowlands and Great Lakes Basin became Canada's heartland. Geography favored these regions for growth. The rivers dictated the flow of people. Water shaped the nation's destiny. Canada's southern edge is anchored by its powerful neighbor, the United States. The border is more than a line, it's an economic and cultural magnet. Most settlement followed the path of least resistance, hugging the U.S. border. Proximity to the U.S. means easier trade, cheaper transport, and more jobs. Factories and cities cluster near the border to access the massive American market. Climate reinforces this pull. The South is warmer and more livable. The result, a feedback loop of growth along the border. Canadians live where it's warmest and closest to opportunity. The border is a lifeline, not just a boundary. Geography and economics make the South irresistible. Canada is an urban archipelago, cities as islands in a sea of wilderness. From above, the country appears as a scattering of bright clusters, each surrounded by endless forests, lakes, and mountains. These urban centers are like beacons separated by vast stretches of untamed land that have shaped the Canadian experience for generations. Most Canadians live in a handful of metropolitan clusters: Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Southern Ontario, Montreal, and the Maritimes. These cities are not just population centers but cultural and economic hubs, each with its own unique character and rhythm. Life in these urban islands is vibrant and diverse, reflecting the mosaic of people who call them home. Ontario and Quebec alone hold over half the population. The majority of Canadians are concentrated along a narrow band near the southern border, where the climate is milder and opportunities are greater. Here, cities pulse with energy, while the countryside quickly gives way to wilderness. The rest of the provinces and vast northern territories share what's left. In these regions, small towns and remote communities are scattered across immense distances, often separated by hundreds of kilometers of forest, prairie, or tundra. For many, the rest of Canada is an abstraction. Distances are vast, travel is often by air. The sheer scale of the land means that journeys between cities can take hours, and the wilderness in between is rarely seen up close by most Canadians. The country is stitched together by highways, railways, and flight paths, not by continuous settlement. These vital links connect the islands of humanity, allowing people and goods to move across the immense landscape. But the sense of separation remains. Regional identity is strong. People feel closer to their city or province than to the whole nation. Local traditions, accents, and loyalties run deep, shaped by the unique challenges and opportunities of each place. Canada functions as a federation of semi-isolated centers. Each city and region has its own story, its own priorities, and its own way of life, all woven together into the larger Canadian fabric. The spaces between shape the national character. The vastness fosters resilience, independence, and a quiet respect for the land that connects and divides. Understanding this archipelago is key to understanding Canada itself. The geography shapes not just where people live, but how they think, interact, and imagine their country. The empty spaces are as defining as the cities. They are a constant reminder of the scale, beauty, and challenge of life in Canada. Canada is a nation of islands, of people, not land. To truly know this country, you must see both the vibrant cities and the silent, endless spaces that lie between. Canada's population pattern creates unique challenges for services. Most people are clustered in the south, but the land is vast. For those in remote areas, access to healthcare, education, and infrastructure is a daily struggle. Hospitals and specialists are often hundreds of kilometers away. Emergency care relies on air ambulances. Costs are high and outcomes uneven. Maintaining roads, internet, and supply chains for small communities is expensive but necessary. Basic goods can cost several times more in the north. The political debate centers on how much the south should subsidize the north. Bridging the void is about more than roads, it's about fairness and national unity. Geography forces Canada to constantly balance distance and equality. What does the future hold for Canada's empty spaces? Climate change may soften the north, making new areas habitable. Thawing permafrost and shifting agricultural zones could push settlement northward. Resource extraction, oil, gas, minerals, may drive new towns and infrastructure. Technology and remote work could untether people from big cities. Government investment in connectivity and services could encourage decentralization. A more distributed population could ease urban pressures and strengthen national unity. Expansion must be sustainable and respect Indigenous rights. The story of Canada's emptiness isn't over. The next chapter is being written now. Geography and humanity continue their cosmic dance. The land still sets the terms. The future is wide open.